And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me. I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my hand.
He made history at just 23 years old for being the first African-American special operations sniper in the 3rd Ranger Battalion. This morning, we're taking a look at the military career of Nick the Reaper Irving. One I also explore in my book, Modern Warriors. He's a chapter in that book because he is fantastic. Fox News correspondent Charles Watson joins us now with his story in honor of Black History Month. Charles.
Hey, good morning. You know, Nicholas Irving says he was destined to be a military sniper. That's who he was in his early 20s, and it would change the course of his life moving forward. Take a look. Nearly 11 years later, Nicholas Irving still thinks about his close call with death. On his 6th deployment in Afghanistan, Irving and a reconnaissance team on a mission to take out a high-value target had walked into a Taliban ambush.
Every time we would pick up our head, it would get shot at, and you'd see the ground pop next to you. We were pinned down by a sniper.
The gunfight lasted for hours as Irving sat covered in the blood of his fellow soldiers who had been gunned down. He and his comrades thought about ending it all on their own terms.
I legit blacked out and really wanted to cry looking at, the PL with the hole in his chest. It was terrifying.
And that moment, he thought back to his childhood. The son of 2 Cold War veterans living in government housing, he had few friends and struggled through school.
I got bullied a lot of fights, a lot of chased home after school.
The only thing that truly intrigued him was military snipers.
All my focus was tailored around being in the Army, from ROTC to joining the Navy Sea Cadet Corps.
At 17, he enlisted. By the age of 23, he had become the first African-American sniper to deploy with the 3rd Ranger Battalion.
A couple of guys in the sniper section would say, "Hey man, I don't think I've ever seen a black guy in sniper section." A few jokes here and there and stuff like that.
But Irving left little room for mistakes. Being one of only a few people of color, he felt everything he did reflected on him being black. So at battle, he stood out like no other, earning the nickname Reaper for his abilities to take a target out with his sharpshooting skills.
Every time we went out, I was pulling the trigger every single time. Once you know that thing that you're capable of doing, it kind of like alters who you are and how you perceive different aspects of life and what life may throw at you. You're kind of invincible.
Back in Afghanistan, that invincible mentality would kick in as Irving and his fellow soldiers gunned their way out of that Taliban attack nearly 12 hours later.
Nobody's the same after that.
Irving made it out of
12-hour firefight, I doubt it.
Ranger Battalion's deadliest snipers with a record 33 kills in 100 days, a wartime achievement that tugged at his soul back at home.
I just screamed and I cried a lot in my car. I think I carried a lot of that hate after I got out. There you go.
Irving says he tried to drink his pain away until the birth of his son. He's been clean ever since.
Good job, buddy.
Today, he's a loving father and husband, turning the page from his days as the Reaper.
It was just a chapter. It's a chapter. It was really good, but I'm not at the end yet.
And since leaving the military, Nick has published a number of books. He tells me he's working on a new autobiography. It's called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and Everything in Between. And people continue our celebration of Black History Month. All you have to do is head over to foxnews.com/America Together. Back to you.
Very cool. Charles, so well done with that. You can also watch an episode of Modern Warriors where I go to the range with Nick Irving, and he shoots circles around me, all right? The guy is...
I bet that's real hard to do. So, Range, you out there?
Yeah, we made it through. Hadn't been particularly fun or interesting, but we made it. Sure enough, made it.
You've had it worse than us, and that is freezing here. I cannot. I mean, I get my second shot tomorrow, and then I'm out of here. Within 30 days, I will be out of here for a month to the Caribbean somewhere.
So let me get this out of the way.
The only long withstanding consequence is that you don't get to see my beautiful face today because our internet service is not what it could be right now because of infrastructure loss during this cool spell and this cold snap, and so you don't get to see me today, but you get to hear me.
So no representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed or greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. This is the Backstory Podcast. I'm Harry Steele. I have Paul Ripp in the studio with me today.
Happy to be here as cold as I am, and anything I say is opinion, and you can take that for what it's worth.
And Mr. Rushing, as you say, is snowed in Houston, Texas. You don't hear that much.
My God.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's first of all, the riddle of the week. What was the first thing the Alabama legislature should have done when the session convened last week? And the answer is impeach the constitutional officers who refused to enforce COVID-19 restrictions, especially the ones who are in the death care business. And brother, business is a booming.
I wonder who that is.
What did they accomplish in their first week in Montgomery? We'll tell you a little bit later in the podcast. So this was last week when you weren't here, Range, the big pile up on the interstate. And now it's out of the frying pan into the fire. So you guys have been without power for how long, or rolling blackouts? Or why don't you describe to us the deficiencies in your utility infrastructure over there?
Well, first and foremost, I've got to tell you why I've been absent. I mean, you guys know, but for anybody that gives a damn, the reason I've been out is because I had to have 6 teeth taken out last week. 4 wisdom teeth and 2 lower back molars. And so I was kind of, the first week I was out, it was just because of pain. One of those wisdom teeth went abscess on me. And that was some pain I hadn't experienced in quite some time. And it finally forced me to go to the dentist. I don't much cotton on doctors and whatnot, but I got to give it up to the oral surgeon who did my surgery. I mean, I was so terrified of getting my wisdom teeth out, because the last time they suggested getting them out was like 1989. And back then it was, massive recovery time, and it would hurt and all this other stuff. They pulled 6 of my teeth under anesthesia, everything else in 52 minutes.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. And I got to say, my recovery, while it hasn't been, an exhilarating experience, has been an accelerated one. And I'm doing great. And I'm only, 8 days out or 9 days out from having that surgery done. So I've got to, hand it out to Modern Dentistry. But I'm back in the saddle. Let's talk about Texas. I have been extremely pragmatic about this situation. And I think you will find that people who have been through major natural disasters tend to be a little more pragmatic about things. I am not going to echo any of the claims of right-wing media about renewable energy or any of that. I'm just going to tell you that I'm not mad enough to light something on fire right now. I'm upset. Don't get me wrong. I think that things could have been done to prevent what happened, but prevented completely? No. And I'm saying that simply because this was 1,000-year storm level infrastructure strain. This is not something you can prepare for. And like I told Harry earlier in the week when I spoke with him, you can't build winterized power plants all over the state of Texas. It would be the equivalent of building summerized power plants. And they don't put central air conditioning in homes in Toronto. It's just not needed.
And you don't insulate a gas powered steam plant like in Alabama or Texas like you would in Minnesota or Maine.
Right. We don't build natural gas facilities here like they do in Trondheim, Norway. You know, it's just not done. So I understand
that it was a bunch of windmills that froze, and that caused it's a bunch of hooey.
So ridiculous that when I saw that stuff, I'm
It's
going,
an efficiency loss problem at your plants because of the temperature.
Absolutely that. It's absolutely that. We lost power because our entire infrastructure couldn't keep up with it. Not because windmills froze. God, I wish y'all could see my face, how consternated that makes me. It's not because of that. Did some windmills freeze? Sure. Did the green power lose production? Absolutely. But so did coal. So did natural gas. They just, when you've got your entire grid producing 60%, you can't blame it on the minority of the producers.
All right, so let's talk about the real victim in all this.
Oh, God.
Ted Cruz. So you're the Texan. Go for it, man.
You know, I got to be honest with you. I've got a different outlook on this whole Ted Cruz thing.
After the stress of the Senate thing, he needed a couple days on the beach and you know what?
Ted Cruz is a son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't take a leak on his head if his hair was on fire.
But
in fact, if Ted Cruz ever walked into a bar, Ted Cruz ever walked into a bar I was drinking at, I'd go to jail because I'd smash a damn ashtray upside Ted Cruz's head without a second thought. However,
a lot of love.
Ted Cruz faces absolutely no political danger from this. The people of Texas will vote blue in Houston because of what Ted Cruz did. The people in Dallas will vote blue because of what Ted Cruz did. The people in El Paso and along the border will vote blue because of what Ted Cruz did. However, that's a very small part of the state, and the rest of the state will vote Ted Cruz because, by God, he was on the side of Trump.
That's it.
And that's that. He literally, they don't care that he incited an insurrection. They don't care that he went to Cancun. They'll forget all about Cancun in about 2 weeks because Ted Cruz will go on Fox News and say something great about that bastard Trump. And then he'll say something great about how libertarian Texas is and it's business first. And they'll forget all about it. And when all those AR-15 buying shit heels that work in the oil patch go back to work, they'll forget all about it too when their paychecks start rolling back in. So it doesn't matter. None of it matters. Just know that there are lots of people that would like to see Ted Cruz on a cruise, and not C-R-U-I-S-E. I mean C-R-U-Z, Español para cross. And that's a fact.
Well, I saw an interview, Raines, and they were asking a guy in Texas. They said, do you know Ted Cruz is in Cancun? And he said, really? He said, well, he can stay there. I thought that was pretty good.
You asked my next door neighbor who was still flying his Trump flag up until a week ago, said, hey, did you know Ted Cruz is in Mexico? And that old bastard's going to tell you, I bet you there's a bunch of Ted Cruzes in Mexico.
It's pretty good. All right, Paul, your subject matter.
Mine and J.D. Crow's this week. J.D. Crow beat me to the punch with his cartoon. It's all about Medicaid. Kyle Whitmire of AL.com out of Birmingham. He wrote an article too about Medicaid. I remember the first one back in 2015, which was our love gov Governor Bentley, who turned down $3 billion that year. That was on a 90% paid by the government, 10% paid by the state. It's now changed to 95% participation by the feds and only 5% by the state. KIV paid no attention whatsoever to the Auburn poll, which shows both parties supporting the expansion of Medicaid. Can you go to that graph, Harry?
I cannot.
Oh, okay. Well,
that graph. All the graph shows is the percentage of people who are in favor of it,
I wondered,
regardless of their political affiliation.
Once again, Backstory Podcast comes through for you when it comes to information dissemination.
Well, it was, I can remember it was 57% of the Republicans.
There you go.
it was 52.2% of Republicans either somewhat or strongly support expanding Medicaid, while a full 84.8% of Democrats were in favor of it. And then it goes on to show a little bit more on the independent level and the response from strongly support, somewhat support, etc. However, the overall report supported increasing Medicaid. Now, it's not now the only reason that Medicaid has been ever turned down.
Let me break this down. 52% of Republicans are for it. 84% of Democrats are for it.
Right.
Period.
Right. But the greater percentage is for it. Okay.
Correct.
And the sad part about it is that the rural communities are the ones that are affected by this the most. Low income, hospitals have been closed, people have literally died. And Alabama's just spent $3 million on a private partnership in prisons, $3 billion. When you look at overall, let's go back to 2015 and go forward, say to 2021. Again, Kyle Whitmire just wrote another article. This being ripreport.com or the Facebook site. And, you know, we're talking about 15, 20 billion dollars in the last 7 years.
Okay,
we have
so
left on the table.
Check my math here, Rains. We put up $50 million and we draw down $1 billion worth of Medicaid funds.
Yeah.
That's some strong leverage.
Right.
And we could save our rural hospitals who are going broke because the only place they make money is in elective surgeries.
Right. And
none of those are happening right now because all the bed spaces was being used for COVID. We'll get to those numbers in a minute.
Yeah, and those of you that think, well, if you don't have the money for healthcare, tough. Well, let me tell you something. You are paying for it in your healthcare bills. So that's what people don't understand. And the Medicaid thing is a real crying shame in the state of Alabama, and that's what holds us down. These type of decisions, spending $3 billion on the private prison thing. How much have we lost in lottery since I think it was 2001 when it first came up? Billions and billions and billions of dollars. What about decriminalization of marijuana? Another $1 billion. But you know, we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's called insanity. But and you don't see the legislature, no one mentioning it at all. Ivy just said, no, we're not going to do it. So they didn't even pay attention to it. Sad, very sad. 95% paid by federal. All we have to do is match it by 5%, and we can't do it. All right, Harry, go.
So, Rains, we lost the titan in mass communications this week. The Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient Rush Limbaugh went to the great beyond. And I would like to say that I believe he is the godfather of the vile. And he's the reason 26,000 troops had to show up. And he's the godfather of these dipshits. And he's the godfather of these dipshits, and especially these people.
He was one of the first ones to come out with outlandish false statements and just say them over and over and over again to where people just hooked on to it, you know, just believed it without any type of verification. But
and made it okay for both sides to do that, so long as it moved the ball forward for them.
Right. And
you know,
he left this world valued at $500 million.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of mourning for this particular loss in our nation's history. I'm not one to speak ill of the dead, but as the great Mark Twain once said, I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but there are a few obituaries that I read with much enthusiasm. That's really about all I got to say on that. Rush Limbaugh aired a segment one time when I was younger that that talked about people dying of the AIDS virus. And he did it for a lot of shows, and he would read off the names of people that died from AIDS and would run an applause track and a celebration track behind it. And I lost a family friend to AIDS that year, and I pretty much put him on a list of people that I'd punch in the head to catch a case on if I ever run across him. So I got nothing good to say about him at all, period, and I never have. And when you say that he is the presidential winner of freedom and godfather of all those sons of bitches, well, yeah, you're right. And
It all goes back to him.
I got nothing. I wouldn't say that, but I would definitely say that, there's a lot of talking heads out there, and he's just one of them. And somebody who is celebrated for spewing hate speak, no, that's no big loss for me. And they better cremate him, because I'll make it a bucket list thing to kick his headstone over if they bury him.
Well, there was nothing productive. It was always counterproductive.
And so now we've got a witch hunt going on in the military.
Nah, witch hunt.
It's a
Why would you call it a witch hunt?
That's not.
Because it's a witch hunt.
I'm not going.
It's not a witch hunt. White supremacism is rampant in the U.S. military. I'm here to tell you, it has been, it always has been, and it will be unless somebody does something about it. And the fact that they're doing that to get a deeper conversation about the problem is part of it. And if you don't think that white supremacy can exist in the military, try being a woman in the military and let me know the sexual harassment culture exists or the rape culture exists in the military. It most certainly does. There's a lot of bad in our United States military as far as ideals go. And because we are an all volunteer army, you get to fix that.
I agree. Next. We're ganging up on him.
I'm just saying I might have to. I hope I outlive Rain so I can kick over his tombstone for saying that about our military.
Well, that's true.
27.9 million infected in the U.S. with 494,151 deaths.
Wow. Almost 500,000 people. I wonder how many people still think this is fake.
Our Walmarts are the only Walmarts in the world that don't have coronavirus vaccine, Paul.
Well, I was talking to my daughter, and she said, I don't see the problem. Just turn the whole thing over to Chick-fil-A. They'll get everybody vaccinated.
And then the wise men at the CDC are giving new advice about fully vaccinated people can skip quarantine. The WHO took the guided tour reins. Guess what the problem is? They refuse to provide the raw data. So what the hell? So I feel much better. They went over there and looked at the building that's been cleansed with a damn flamethrower. Well, and all the records are destroyed.
It is China. They're not going to hand it over voluntarily.
So I'm covering this because this came out last week, and DeSantis said he heard through the grapevine that Biden was going to restrict the travel of Florida citizens outside of their state, which was total bullcrap, and nothing's come of it.
Well, he didn't realize it's going to get so cold and all the grapes are going to fall off the vine.
All right, so Biden's new speed up the vaccinations plan, 200 million doses of vaccine, deploying FEMA to operate up to 100 community vaccination centers, and expanding the number of people who can administer the vaccines. I mean, how much medical training do you need to stab somebody in the arm? Now, maybe to handle the vaccine itself, you need to have a little.
Therein lies the rub. You need trained people to do that. You cannot, because of the medical regulations in this country and most other countries, you cannot just stick a needle in someone's arm. And I'm here to tell you, having been trained in such medical use, you don't always get it right on the first try, and you can literally kill someone with a needle. So it needs to be trained. It needs to be medical professionals doing it. I can tell you that we just had a FEMA contract signed that said we're going to start vaccinating 42,000 people a day at the mega site here in Houston.
And I think right now, Raines, we're somewhere between 1.4 million and 1.6 million getting vaccinated a day.
Yeah, and it's progress marching forward.
Yeah, they're shooting for 2 million, and it looks like they're going to hit it.
That's fantastic.
And additional vaccine has now been purchased that can supply everybody in the United States with getting a shot.
Absolutely fantastic news. Moving forward.
I get my second shot tomorrow, and I will be very happy to do it.
So still don't believe, still think it's foolish, still think it flies in the face of the scientific method for us to discount that this was a bug that got loose from a lab intentionally or otherwise.
I'm sticking with a bat.
Foolish.
I'm sticking with
From a point of the scientific method, you're absolutely correct. You should be exploring the virus and digging into the virus at every available opportunity and to any depth possible, and keep trying to find out more about it. I mean, this is something that has changed the face of the 21st century. So we need to know as much about it as we can. However, as far as our national thinking about it, the origin of the virus is much less important to us now as finding a prevention for the virus. I mean, what if we found out that it was a bug that they developed and accidentally let loose? We going to go to war with China? Get real.
Depends. Okay.
Depends on nothing, Harry. That's absolute crap. That's like saying we find this stuff out, and China says, you know what? F y'all. It was actually a weapon that we developed, and we fumbled it, and it got out, and that's that. What are you going to do about it? Do you think that all
some people at the Hague would have something to say about that?
Oh, you think that the China answers to the Hague?
Give me a break.
We'll see. Okay, so global cases, 110,536,271 confirmed cases with 2.4 million deaths.
500,000 in the United States, going on 500,000 by the end of this weekend. That's just, I remember when we started the podcast, we were somewhere like 60,000 when we started tracking this.
Great news for Alabama. Our cases are falling off. Hopefully that's not just because of the weather and people not going to get tested.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with it.
Probably has a lot to do with it. But we have 485,212 cases confirmed in Alabama with 9,573 deaths. To date, the state of Alabama has been delivered 1,032,000 doses of both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines and has administered 717,000 doses, which is getting a hell of a lot better.
Yes,
and if you go to the Alabama Public Health COVID-19 dashboard hub, you can put in your address and set the radius on the circle, and it will tell you all you need to know about when and where you can get a vaccine, whether you need who you need to call to make an appointment, all that information, something really useful that everybody needs to know about. Of course, the president started his 100-day mask challenge, restructured the federal coordination for COVID-19 pandemic response. We still don't have access to the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which would be my preference. Biden's $1.9 trillion relief plan is still just crawling through Congress. Governor Ivey signed the lease for 2 prisons last week, and there's been a good bit of backlash about that. Richard Shelby's announced that he will not be our senator. He doesn't imagine he'll live long enough to serve another 6 years, seeing as he's 87 or however old he is. So there are our Twitter handles, and now we come to the dreaded Rip Report.
Okay.
Well, please speak into the microphone.
Okay. Well, we talked about we already talked about the Medicaid, and that's the Rip Report this week. But then we have Lagniappe Any of you that don't get a lanyap, I suggest that you do if you want to know what's going on at all, because there is no other print media that is telling you as much. You can get it at newsstands, subscribe for it, or get it through your computer. And I'm going to go over some articles, and, we're not reading the whole article, so I suggest that you read the whole article if you want to know more about it. And these are not in any one particular order. One of the ones I saw in there was Helping Hands Mobilian starts charity aimed at helping underprivileged veterans. B. Daniels, founder of the Value for Veterans, said that group's mission is to help underprivileged veterans suffering from financial issues and physical and mental health issues. Mental health is a big thing right now, as well as those seeking to transition to civilian life. Daniel said the organization like this was something lacking in the general area. Listed among the group's accomplishments is a partnership with Home Depot, Hiring Our Heroes program. Daniel said the program currently hires between 35,000 and 40,000 veterans per year. That's why Home Depot gets my business. In addition to the job, and I think this is very important, and I'm going to try to get a hold of B and find out more about it. But in addition to the job and health resources, Value for Veterans offers financial literacy classes on credit and mortgages, as well as help with Department of Veterans Affairs claims. How successful she'll be with the claims, I'm not sure, but the credit and mortgage literacy and financial literacy, I think that's very important to a lot of these guys, veterans that are coming back out. How to handle your money is. Next article is Coming Soon, Governor on Hand for Aldi's Loxley groundbreaking. The company said its new regional headquarters and distribution center is $100 million capital investment that'll provide 200 blue and white collar jobs when it opens next year, and it will support as many as 35 new retail stores across the Gulf Coast. Loxley Mayor Richard Teal said the city was ecstatic to host Aldi, which is building its facility near the distribution center for Ace Hardware, which opened in 2000. We're eager for the new job opportunities that come to the citizens, as well as economic growth and development for our community. I guess Mayor Teal is ecstatic. That's huge for their community. The next one, I have to be careful that it doesn't get my blood boiling too much.
Can I answer the riddle at
Yeah.
this point?
Yeah.
So one of the bills that is ready for the governor's signature after 5 days in Montgomery is the new economic development package, incentives package for newly relocating industries.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they pointed out was that our corporate income tax in Alabama is 4%. And we're competing with places like North Carolina where it's 2.4% or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying we just can't compete. But what they're not thinking about are the non-educational ad valorem taxes that we're already discounting for these guys. So anyway, that's what's important to your Alabama legislature in the middle of a pandemic. They're doing the Business Council of Alabama's bidding for projects like this.
Their priorities are totally askew, I can tell you that. The next article, like I said, not to get my blood boiling, by Gabe Times, as chairman of Bayou La Battery Utilities Board, is hit with a minor violation. Now, this is an ethics violation. Alabama Ethics Commission passed a motion citing the chairman of the Bayou La Battery Utilities Board, that is Sylvia Raley, Raley, R-A-L-E-Y, Raley, who's been there almost 25 years. And, when you see this, you're thinking, oh boy, what did she do, And as we know in Fairhope, anything from stealing BP money.
So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here. So y'all need.
Like I said, anything from stealing BP money to bid rigging to being on the board and
how about the
bids.
How about the BB gun caper? Did you hear about the BB gun shooting spree range? 17 vehicles, windows shot out.
How did that come to play with this?
We're talking about Fairhope.
Oh, that's in Fairhope?
Yeah, that was in Fairhope. It must not have come down your way.
Well, anyway, getting back to this, you would think, really, I mean, when you read this article, which is very short, you got to ask yourself, what in the hell is going on? Because what she is accused of doing is buying a cell phone. Now, she's been there 25 years. She's working for the utility company, and they're responsible for $2 million annually. They provide water and wastewater services for thousands of meters in and around Biola Battery. She's been there 25 years, and they're saying that she bought a cell phone, an unauthorized cell phone. You got to be kidding me. That's why most people think that the Ethics Commission is a joke.
It is a joke.
And aids and abets in corruption.
And if she was the mayor's girlfriend or some shit, she wouldn't be in any kind of trouble.
And I can assure you that the ethics violation brought against her was one of two things or the same.
No, they were already there looking.
Political or a disgruntled employee. One of the two. I'll put money on it right now. Something a little bit lighter under Hidden Agenda by Ashley Trice, Potheads in Our Midst. Now, I can just see everybody saying, oh, it's just going to be about pot and potheads. Oh. Not true. For those of you that don't, it's a small kitchen appliance called an Instant Pot. It's a pressure cooker about the size of a crock pot. But she goes on to tell about how she went on Facebook that night and found the group. And to her surprise, many of the groups were closed. You had to answer certain questions before you could even be on the Instant Pot Facebook site and comment. But people swear by it, and it's a pretty interesting little article, to tell you the truth. Next is, will Alabama finally get the lottery? By Jeff Poor under Beltway Beat. Well, who the hell knows? But one thing's for sure, it's not going to happen until 2022, because you've got to have a referendum. That's our next election coming up, which means if we finally get it together and do get a lottery, it will be probably 2023 or 2024 before we are able to put our money down on a lottery. So
okay, so
don't hold your breath.
I thought there was a comprehensive gaming bill that was coming forward, coming out of the governor's commission that she put together 2 years ago.
Well,
and that calls, so for that to happen, it has to pass the legislature by a 2/3 vote and then go to the people as a constitutional amendment.
Right.
That's how gaming and lottery will happen. They can't just do it in the legislature because of the constitutional prohibition.
And what gets me is when we start talking about the lottery or we start talking about medical marijuana, they always want to study it. Let's forget that, there's 20-something states or 50-something states. I don't know how many got a lottery, but we got to study it,
Can I talk about a bill real quick?
Yeah, jump in there.
House Bill 109, justices and judges revised compensation received by retired justices and judges who are called to active duty.
Ooh.
Under Code Section 121810.
That kind of sounds like the slapping Mike case in Spanish Fort.
Well, the retired judges could be brought in on a part-time basis to deal with the judge shortage and growing backlog of cases.
Now, those judges wouldn't be responsible to any of the citizens because they weren't elected.
Okay, well, let me give you another, for instance. There's another bill afoot that says district judges who are elected to hear misdemeanor, like DUIs, traffic tickets, that kind of thing, misdemeanor charges, and controversies of small claims. Right. Small claims court. District judge sits in on those.
Correct.
So this new law says that they can sit as special circuit judges to make decisions in, guess what, Paul?
That's kind of like
domestic relation cases.
What? That's like Judge Michelle Thomason.
She was never elected to sit as a domestic relations judge,
and she's been making wrong case decisions for years.
Well, that's neither here nor there. The issue is
she shouldn't even be there.
This bill would change this across the state, and district judges would be allowed to hear divorce cases. Now, we don't elect them to hear any cases where felony, where you're going to be in prison for more than a year or make decisions about controversies of more than $10,000, but we're going to let them make decisions about your damn children and everything you own in this world, all your property. And they were never elected to do that. So I have a real problem with these bills, and I hope that you do too, and you'll let your local legislative delegation know about it.
And note that the local delegation is not bringing up anything at all about the unregulated sewer.
So, Raines, they also want to allow local law enforcement under House Bill 17 to tap your phone if they think you're a drug dealer.
That's only if a local judge finds probable cause. Ha ha. That means anybody could be tapped. All right, next is in Lagniappe, a little clarity. Locals forming a statewide clean water initiative by Gabe Times.
All right, Raines.
Sorry if I'm a little cynical on this particular article.
So, Raines, do you remember the Good Vibes candidate who ran for mayor, John Malonis?
Surfboard guy,
paddleboard guy,
yeah,
got lost in the bay,
right? Who said he didn't want to get involved in any of the politics again?
So now apparently our local, Mobile Bay Watch, all the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program, all of these different the Alabama Clean Rivers Initiative,
Weeks Bay,
on and on and on and on. So continue with your article and tell us who all's involved in this thing.
Well, first it's State Representative Joe Fausta Fairhope, who's indicated he may not run for re-election. There's a key right there, people. Think about that.
Ding,
he's saying
ding.
He's not going to run. And then right below it, we got John Malonis, a former Fairhope mayoral candidate who campaigned on curbing pollution that's currently spoiling Mobile Bay for the last 20 years. He's not telling us anything we don't know.
It's the city of Fairhope sewer plant that's doing it.
But the first
big mystery.
Yeah, and John says that the first step is to educate citizens, elect officials on the current threats, then to organize representatives to identify the primary threats and determine what action can be taken to mitigate them. Ultimately, we hope to develop proposed policy for outcomes to address the problem at a state level. John Malonis, member of Clean Water Alabama. Well, tell you what, John. There's about
John.
You can do
17. You can join the Coastal Conservation Association,
right?
If you care about sport fishing, kayaking, conservation, clean water. That's what I belong to.
Right. And if you want to talk to anybody, let's listen a little bit to local environmental journalist, author, and filmmaker Ben Raines, who wrote the book Saving Americans Amazon, the Threat to Our Nation's Most Bioverse River System. It's absolutely excellent to read. And he's quoted as saying, I'm not really in tune with what Clean Water Alabama, are doing, but the water issues are dramatic. Alabama needs a water management plan that governs usage. Mr. Raines and all the people that Harry mentioned, they've been doing this for years and years and years. So I don't see.
So is Catalyst trying to take over the environmental?
Oh, that's not going to.
What's going on here, Raines? What's the play for Catalyst?
The play is to maybe slip John Malonis right into the Representative Joe Fausta spot. That's what I see.
Getting them some press, coming up with a fake organization that's duplicative.
Yeah. That's what I see.
Absolutely.
That's what I forecast.
I agree with Paul 100% because it.
I'm sorry. Say again, Raines.
I said I agree with Paul 100%. It's the long con.
Yeah,
that's what Catalyst specializes in.
Right. And then Damn the Torpedoes by Rob Holbert, The Mysterious Reception in D.C. This involves Tommy Tuberville and the communications director for Mr. Tuberville, Ryan Durant, which is saying one thing and another. And then I think was Alabama political reporter. They were blamed for misquoting and didn't say this and didn't say that. Did Mr. Tuberville show up for the January 5th meeting at Trump's hotel? He denied it at first, and pictures came out, so it's pretty obvious he was there. Then everyone says, well, they don't know who called for anyone to be there. And so now Mr. Tuberville's pretty much made his statement as to where he was and what he was doing and what he didn't know. But, and he has made a pretty big splash during his first month in office. But he now may find himself as a witness in any of the investigations that are the offspring of what he's already said and doesn't reflect well on Trump. Such a commission might also end up getting to the bottom of whose reception Tuberville attended and who was there and what they talked about. So I think this is going to be something that we're going to be reading about for months. You know, there's already one lawsuit by the NAACP. We're talking about a commission 9/11 style to look into it. And I can assure you that's the tip of the iceberg.
So what's more salacious, that Tuberville lied or that Cuomo lied? What's the bigger lie this week?
Oh, well, when it comes to,
I mean, if you're watching Fox News, Cuomo's lies a big deal.
Well, that story has not come totally out, but it should, and it will, and it will.
I'll tell you, my take on it is that I find it pretty salacious that Governor Cuomo engaged in some sort, any inkling of a cover-up. I absolutely despise that, and I think that he should be held accountable for it. If so, it has nothing to do with his popularity or how much I think of him as a person. I don't tolerate cover-ups in any level of government, so he should be held accountable. Now, does it pale in comparison to a Capitol insurrection? Yeah, to a degree. And of course, Fox News is going to play it up that way. But Tommy Tuberville is, I'm going to say it right now, Tommy Tuberville is the new Ted Cruz of Alabama. This is as the Cubans say, me rebala, this is water off my back. So he's going to be just fine, because the same people that vote in a lottery in your state believe in a tax on people that don't understand math, and the overwhelming majority of people don't, and they're going to keep voting for Tommy Tuberville because he's Coach Tuberville, and by God, he's a Republican.
It's the same percentage of people who believe in angels in Alabama.
Well, Mr. Tuberville will be very successful in Alabama and not at all successful in Washington. One other thing in Lagniappe, other than news and vaccine and mysterious receptions, is downtown is Mobile, the Egyptian mummies and eternal life presentation by the Bedsole Foundation at the History Museum of Mobile. I'm more a Mayan ruins guy and Mayan art, but the Egyptian display is something to see. So that's something you might want to do other than talk about politics. And you'll be happy to know that, if we can't fix our prisons and we can't fix our schools and, we have all these other problems that we are talking about, but soon to come, alcohol home delivery gets closer to a reality by Alison Shepard. And this is about, you're now going to be able to get your alcohol delivered to your house. So, you can weep and drink at the same time while you look over the political situation. One of the other real interesting articles, a lot of people know who Sarah Thomas is Super Bowl yet another first for NFL, Sarah Thomas by Tommy Hicks. She's from Pascagoula, Mississippi, and was the one of the referees at the Super Bowl, but by no means is this her first. She has quite a few accomplishments.
She blows calls just like the just like the boys do.
Well,
Exactly right.
I was watching her in that game. She blew a call.
Fantastic
Good.
referees. They're just referees. I ain't got a whole lot for referees. So when it comes to groundbreaking desegregation of the zebra corps in the NFL, I'm like, fantastic. Now let's work on the site requirement.
right. She became the first woman to officiate a high school football in Mississippi and would go on to become the first woman official on a college level, the Division I level, and the Big Ten. She became the first woman to officiate a college bowl game and soon after became the first to call an NFL game. So she's got quite a history with her going. You interested in some music? You can go to the music briefs in the back of Lagniappe. You'll read about the bands like Webster's Wheel, Cole Jones, Wes Looper, and Shine Down Sunday Concert. These are different venues, different artists that are going to be playing in the Mobile area. You might want to catch them and read up on them. And then the cover story this week is the Betting on It by Gabe Times. Lawmakers determined to get a comprehensive gambling bill to voters. We've kind of talked about that gambling bill. And then Gabe goes into the Commission for Gambling and the comprehensive bill and how it's going to work. He also lists Baldwin County and Mobile County, some of the state senators, different state bills. I find it interesting that in Fairhope, again, remember, none of these legislative people are even discussing anything to do with sewer.
Hey, can I interrupt you for a second? This picture that we're looking at is all the boats that are still sunk at the little harbor at the Fairhope Municipal Pier.
Oh, the Fairhope Pier has
See the mast coming out of water.
They got electric lines down, water lines down. They had the pier shut down. All these boats are out there trashed. I've never seen 1,448 feet of pier less used and misused than the Fairhope Pier. It just blows my mind every time I go out there that, they don't never have utilized that pier. They should go back in history and look how the people that founded Fairhope, how they used the pier, because they used the pier for traffic and money and making and everything else. But, we got this great
cabal.
We got the redneck renovation coming up, so we'll see how that goes. Getting back to Mr. Chris Elliott, State Senator Chris Elliott,
tax man.
Right. Everybody remembers probably a year or two ago the controversy about someone down, I believe it was in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach.
Had time to deal with these people and meet these people and talk to these people, yet we've treated them poorly, which I think I find offensive and I take personally.
Yeah, really. But anyway, SB 8 prohibits a homeowners association or condominium association from restricting or preventing members from displaying the state flag on residential property within the association. The one thing I see there that may be some problems later is he's not designating any particular size. So somebody goes out there and puts a 50 by 40 flag up, but this all resulted from one individual putting a flag up and the homeowners association tell them to take it down.
This is a buddy do bill.
Right. And now here's one that everybody should pay attention to. This is one of those little sneaky bills that Catalyst is known for. This is the Catalyst State Bill 107.
Yep.
Listen to this. A bill to limit the police and planning jurisdiction of municipalities passed the Senate and is referred to the House committee. One line, one sentence. What are they not telling you? They are telling you that everything out of a municipality jurisdiction, they want that planning opened up to where they can develop without any municipality looking over their shoulder.
So you take a protractor, you put it in the middle of your town, you draw a 3-mile radius around it, and that is your extraterritorial planning jurisdiction. If somebody wants to build something right outside of your municipality, they have to conform with your subdivision regulations, because the logical conclusion is that you will continue to grow and eventually annex that area. What they want to do is cut the city out so they can go right up next to the city, build whatever the hell they want because the county hardly has any standards. And then once they're done, annex it into the city, and the city takes responsibility for police, fire, and maintaining those roads that were built to who knows what the hell kind of standard.
And that's why you're seeing all these glorious storage buildings built right on your main roads.
If you want to know a catalyst bill when you see one,
This is a catalyst bill. That's a catalyst bill. Limit the police and planning jurisdiction of municipalities. People gonna be yelling about it later. Here's another one. I like this one. I really like this one. I mean, this just goes to show you Mr. Elliott's presumption of power. It's SB 223, a proposal to ban social media companies from deactivating, restricting, canceling, or otherwise discontinuing a political candidate's access to or use of its resources during an election season. Now, don't you know that's going to worry Google? I mean, that's just going to give them heart failure. I can just see them telling these platforms that no, they can't be restricted. And I believe
federal supremacy,
I believe that Mr. Elliott did go through that in the last election. He was restricted from some certain things that he said. I find that preposterous that you would.
He got a DUI and never had a restricted driver's license, though.
No.
And remember who did that for him? One of our currently retired judges. And you're going to get to that, right?
Right. And let's not forget that, you know, at the time, Mr. Elliott's wife still is working for the sheriff's department. That had to help get out of that DUI too. All right. Then,
don't hurt.
Then state, here's one I want you to tell me what you think of, Rain. State Representative Shane Stringer, HB 337, a partisan bill to create the Alabama Firearms Protection Act to protect the state, its agencies, and political subdivisions for participating in the enforcement of any federal act, law, order, rule, or regulation related to firearm accessories, ammunition, and would provide penalties for that violation. Now, let me get this straight. We are going to prohibit the state from enforcing any of the federal laws representative to firearms. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's in the parlance.
What about when they cut off our transportation money because we do that?
Right.
Dipshits.
Right. That's exactly what'll happen. You want to play that game, they'll show you who's going to win that. But don't worry, folks. Soon to come, alcohol home delivery will answer your problems.
Well, it's, I'm glad that you'll be able to get a bottle of whiskey at home to drown your sorrows when you realize that Representative Stringer has written a piece of what we call in legislative parlance parade paper, which is basically a sheet that you wave back and forth. And again, I'm waving just like you'd think you could see me, but you can't. It's parade paper. It's something you wave at your base and go, look what I did. And Shane Stringer, I'll tell you, after having a few conversations with him, is a very intelligent man and understands the political process very well and knows exactly what he's doing with this and knows that it has absolutely no snowball's chance in hell of doing anything other than being a remarkable flag that he can wave for his constituency.
Right. He knows the people he's talking to will think that is a real good idea. Let's tell the feds exactly what the hell they can do and what they can't do in Alabama. I think we had a war. Didn't we have a war about that?
Yeah, one in about 1963, I think. Was it 1961? They had to have the National Guard and the federal troops come down there to Alabama to sort some shit out for y'all.
I believe
you boys beat us to the punch, though, didn't you? Or was that Arkansas had the first stand in the court of schoolhouse door? So a couple of follow-ups. The Fairhope band director was arrested for possession of obscene material on January 28th, and we still don't know exactly what who all his victims were, or if there were any, or
No
if this is
follow-up.
some shit some kid put on his computer at school. Who knows?
No clarification.
There's
no
been
nothing.
nothing other than we know what he's been arrested for.
I have heard a lot of kids that really thought of him as a very good band director and didn't know anything about any obscene material or anything like that. It came quite a shock to the school itself.
I bet.
Well, everybody deserves their day in court. Let's see what happens. If he pleads out, then we can talk about him.
Right.
Okay. So there's a new effort underway to build a new bridge over the Mobile River in Bayway.
Yeah, but they got a very big problem there. Very big. You know, Jack Burrell.
The Eastern Shore MPO / chairman of the Fairhope City Council, Jack Burrell, the great negotiator.
The great negotiator.
Who bought how much did he end up paying for that little corner lot where the clock is in Fairhope?
They paid somewhere right around $600,000 for that.
And then they had to dig the damn gas tanks up out the ground.
Right. And
didn't
then,
know we're there.
And then let's go back out to that $2.65 million purchase for that recreation land, which is farmland that they then leased out to the same farmer, I think. And now is just nothing but a mud patch. And, you know, no one's doing anything with it. And it's located right close to the airport. That's
just
what I
right
think.
Where you want to be.
Well, right. I mean, if you're going to have a big, a big recreation area like that, you're going to bring out everybody. You want to get it close to the airport, right in the flight pattern.
All right. So we talked about the Golden Triangle last time, and I actually came by a better map. How about that?
That certainly shows
shows it better.
It certainly shows the vein of water that's going through that property. It looks like it would be.
You mean all
that? It just looks like that would be very, very difficult to reroute a lot of that water, but
which is why nothing's built here, Range, right? Because it's a big drainage way,
right?
Is why the old Indian trails parted right there.
But
that's 31 and 59.
We could end up putting in a lot of sump pumps and stuff like that to make it work, maybe.
While we're having 3 groundbreakings, was that yesterday?
I believe it was.
Shelby County has a bill afoot to regulate private sewer.
We're watching this one.
We're watching this one closely. We have a new force main going in at the future site of the MAP campus, the USA Medical Center that's going to be built over here at the intersection of 181 and 104.
And, they had a big controversy with Thomas Hospital. We've seen no follow-up with that either.
So let's talk Black History Month, man.
Okay.
Which I think is all of our history, but
Harry, that's the All Lives Matter of the Black history, of the whole history thing. So don't do that.
I'm sure I would have a deficient response in your column.
Well, when you say Black history,
go right ahead.
When you say Black history in Alabama, the first thing I think about is Tuskegee and everything that came out of Tuskegee, Washington Carver, and the Tuskegee Airmen, and who else was that? I was thinking.
Sounds like the guided tour. I know a lot of people of color who were historically significant during my lifetime, and those are the people that I look to. Hank Aaron's you know what I mean. Nicholas Irving's
Driving Miss Daisy. What's the actor? Driving Miss Daisy.
Morgan Freeman?
No, he's Mississippi, isn't he?
Yeah, he's from Mississippi.
He's from Mississippi, right. Yeah.
And so during Black History Month, we're having a congressional hearing about reparations for slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Chattel slavery that was abolished by the 13th Amendment. I think that's right.
Yeah.
In 1864.
Not sure of the year.
The 13th Amendment was 1865.
1865. So Representative Steve Cohen is on the Judiciary Committee from Tennessee. He was a participant. Mr. Howard with the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, co-chair. He participated. Let me think of who else all was in there. Is Walter Payton still alive?
No.
Herschel Walker. It was Herschel Walker. Shit, I was thinking Georgia. He participated, and I don't know. I don't know if it's going to get any traction or not. I certainly have some centuries old grievances from the Creek and Indian War that my family could bring up. But I digress. It's Black History Month, and let's talk about important Black figures in Alabama.
Well, like I said,
All of the save Mobile, all of the major cities, well, Huntsville, have Black mayors.
Yeah.
All right, let me just go ahead
in Alabama.
Let me clear the air here for you. The reason that we have Black History Month is because up until very recently, Black history wasn't taught in schools. It really wasn't. It wasn't emphasized. It wasn't even recognized. I didn't learn about the Tuskegee Airmen until I was in college. I didn't learn about the syphilis experiments they did on them until I was in college. I didn't learn about anybody other than Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass until I was in college. Black History Month is meant to be part of what I've been saying for many, many weeks on this podcast, in that education and empathy is necessary to help eradicate racism. If you make it clear, look, generations of people haven't been taught any of this stuff, including Black kids. And they need to know about the contributions that African Americans have made to this society. That's what it's about. It's not some propaganda campaign to reinforce reparations. And it's definitely not something that says, all right, well, I want y'all to be ashamed of being white. That's horseshit. And it's about education. It's about empathy. No, but that's what the prevailing sentiment. That's the all lives matter. That's the why can't we have a White History Month? Well, because it's all white history.
Okay, Rain.
You know, it's
the Mexican Latinas make up 28.6% of the population and are our largest minority. Although we don't have a Latina History Month.
I think the Blacks have been here a little bit further back than the Latinos.
Well, you don't know anything about history, Paul Rip, because Texas was Latina territory until Sam Houston took it away from them.
Well, I go back to what Rain said a while ago, and that is that Black history was not even taught in schools until recently. So you really didn't know what history.
I don't know why we're having a conversation about why we learn about Black history. I'm just saying it is part of the overall canvas of our story.
Well, I think I've made my point on it pretty clear. The reason that we don't have a Latino History Month in Texas is because all students in Texas are required to take a Texas history class at the high school level. And in that Texas history class, a huge portion of what we owe and the fantastic stuff that Latins did in the state of Texas is taught. As opposed to when you and I were in high school, we didn't learn nothing about what the Blacks did, about anything other than rabble rousing when we were in school. And that's that.
And that's a fact. That's a fact. And wow, a news flash bulletin by Fox News. Kim Kardashian files for divorce from Kanye West. Can you believe it? 7 years. Now she's got something to carry on another season for.
What a shame. I hate it.
Thank goodness.
Could sure see that coming.
So, Robertsdale High School Teacher of the Year dies. You ever met Mr. Peck?
I have not.
Any idea what he died from?
No idea.
Yes.
Doesn't it say?
It's all no, it does not. And I know this is a little bit
how can the article say that the man died and not say, any circumstances around his death?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you exactly how.
Because it might be COVID.
No, newspapers don't report suicides as causes of death unless you are a big-time public figure.
Oh,
I'm talking A-list celebrity. Newspapers and any journalism as a rule in the United States, that's a taboo. That if somebody dies by suicide, you don't print it unless in some way the suicide was important to public knowledge.
and look at the suicides with our veterans. Absolutely.
It very well may be that this poor soul took their own life, and that's why you're not finding out why they died. And as tragic as it is to say, that's usually the takeaway.
And since I bridged on it a little bit, I do want Alabama veterans to know that the Birmingham VA and Veterans Administration here in Alabama have an extensive mental health program and suicide program. So if you feel a need and you're a veteran, you certainly will get the help if you want it.
I don't know if I can follow that, but so there's a zoning issue up in Walnut Hill, which is just the other side of the Baldwin County line as you're heading to Atmore. They want to build a Dollar General there, and there are a lot of people that don't want that in Walnut Hill. Said it will change the future of zoning in rural Escambia County.
Well, it sounds to me like they got more sense in Baldwin County altogether.
And then
I would tend to agree with them.
There was one conservative voice in the reparations hearing, Larry Elder. Are y'all familiar with him? He's a lawyer and syndicated podcaster. He has a radio show. Real smart guy. Anyway, he gave a decent counterpoint, and I would point everybody to that. All right, Mr. Russian, you got any other words of wisdom for us?
No, I'm going to tell y'all, and I'll say this as a general public service announcement: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I enlisted some help from my father wrapping my pipes, stocked up on things that I needed because I knew I was going to need them. Whenever some major weather is affecting your area, it behooves you to just take an hour out of your day and get ready for it. Did we lose power? Yes. Did we suffer in the uncomfortable cold of this house? Yes. But we didn't lose water. We had gas to cook on. We took care of things, and I'd wrap my pipes because I knew this was going to be a freeze. And I have friends of mine in the direct vicinity who did not, and they are reaping what they sowed with that. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't come down to a blame game. It comes down to being prepared for something like this.
And accepting that these events are going to happen.
Well, did you see the video of the woman walking around her house with the ceiling falling in from the pipes burst? You know, the power's out. And so the pipes burst in the wall, and it settles above the ceiling in the sheetrock, and eventually it all just comes down in pieces.
Yeah, it's horrible. And it sucks.
You know, in our area, we might get a freeze, but let's say the freeze doesn't hit, until 1 or 2 in the morning, doesn't last but 6 or 7 hours. Well, we're not getting a hard freeze on our pipes. So that's why we didn't see as much damage. Now you get down to below freezing and it holds there 4 or 5 days. That's when the pipe starts snapping. They just can't take the.
That's exactly right. And here's my general statement that it took me a while to come up with, but I'll be honest with it. Here in the South, where we don't deal with sub-zero temperatures and freezes a whole lot, I'll say this to you: take as good a care of your hearth and home as you do your plants when you're faced with cold weather, and you'll come out all right.
Yeah. And it depends where I saw someone on one of the social media sites said that they had never experienced a hurricane until they moved here, and that they surely didn't want to live in Central America. Well, I lived in Belize for 16 years. Out of 16 years, we got 2 hurricanes. Only one of them was anywhere close to dangerous. And I moved to Fairhope, and since that time, I think it's somewhere between 8 and 10 hurricanes in that same period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Range, ever been on a snipe hunt?
Oh,
Yeah. Of course.
Anybody who doesn't know, when you're a child, all your cousins will eventually play a little trick on you where they'll get a garbage bag and take you out in the woods and tell you to hold the bag open, and everybody else is going to herd the snipe your way, and you're supposed to catch them in the bag. What they do is they leave your ass in the middle of the woods when you're a little kid, and you got to be a tough bastard and walk yourself home in the dark. Now, y'all are aware there really is a snipe, right? If anybody's ever been quail hunting around here,
Little bird, yeah.
little bird, and they are fast as shit, and they will let you step on them. You talking about something that'll give you a heart attack,
before the
a rabbit, or a snipe. So anyway,
We call them marsh hens, I think.
back in the day, anybody who was good enough to hit one with a black powder shotgun was called a
Snipe hunter, a sniper.
sniper.
That's where that came from.
And that's where the term comes from. And I can tell you the third Rangers, even as a former Marine sniper, you would agree those guys are the real deal.
Oh yeah. Now you got to remember during Vietnam, snipers were a little bit different. They were using open scopes and military weapons. Myself, I was not a field, what I call in the field sniper. I was a perimeter sniper at night, and I was using a scope called a Starlight, and that thing was horrible. I mean, it took you forever to try to get anything out of it. But these guys now, they got weapons. They got 50 caliber Beretts that they can hit 3/4 to a mile away.
Shoot a playing card in half with a 50 cal.
Right.
That kind of crazy.
They even have these, I don't know what kind of hunters you would call them, but they're using 50 caliber rifles, and they're shooting animals 1/4 to 1/2, 3/4 of a mile away, from one ravine all the way across another and halfway up a mountain, to where you cannot almost see the animal without the scope. But when that 50 caliber hits you, it's all over, no matter where it hits you.
So, Rains, are you aware that you can buy a Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle?
Absolutely, of course you can. It's America.
Or you know how much they cost?
The price has dropped dramatically. I think a Barrett semi-auto you can get for under $4,000 now.
No, $8,000 minimum without a
No.
No. You can get that
a Barrett semi-auto for under
Y'all must know some guys up in Memphis that I'm not familiar with.
I know you can get the bolt action ones for around $2,000 now.
All right, I'm gonna throw up some Gun Trader when I do the post production. We'll see who's right. I may be eating crow. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of the podcast for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope
everybody stay warm.
These are a couple of high-stepping turkeys. You know what to say about a high step? No step too high.
Let me now move to our next witness is Mr. Elder. Mr. Elder is a conservative attorney, author, and host of the nationally syndicated radio program, The Larry Elder Show. He also writes a nationally syndicated column and produces videos for his YouTube channel in association with the Epoch Times. Mr. Elder received a JD from the University of Michigan and his BA from Brown University. Mr. Elder, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Congresswoman Lee, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. I am the executive producer of a documentary that came out June 19 last year called Uncle Tom, An Oral History of the Black Conservative. And as Congresswoman Lee pointed out, Black people are a race of overcomers. It talks about the fact that despite all the problems that have been brought up in this committee about racism, about slavery, about Jim Crow, Black people have overcome to the point now where only 20% of Black people are below the federally defined level of poverty. Still too high, but in 1940, that number was 87%. And 20 years later, that number had been reduced to 47%, a 40-point drop in 20 years. That is the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for the history of Black Americans. And notably, they came before the Brown versus Board of Education decision. They came before the Civil Rights Bills of 1964, 1965. Despite all of this racism, all of this prejudice, Black people still overcame. I also find it ironic we're having this hearing 13 years after we elected and then re-elected the first Black president of the United States. I'm old school. I still get the newspapers thrown to my house. And the day that Obama got elected, I got the New York Times and the LA Times thrown to my home. And on the front pages of both those newspapers, there were colored pictures of Black parents hugging their kids, crying, saying things like, now I can say for the first time truly that if you work hard, you can be anything you want to be. In 1997, Time Magazine and CNN did a broad survey of Black teens and white teens and asked both of them whether or not racism was a major problem in America. And both of them said yes, not too surprisingly. But then Black teens were asked the following question. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? 89% of Black teens in 1997 said racism was a small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many Black teens as white teens said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism, end of quote. And that again was 23 years ago before Obama got elected, let alone reelected. Speaking of Obama, 2007, he ran for presidency. His rival for the Democratic side was Hillary Clinton. And on the Republican side, the two primary rivals were John McCain and Mitt Romney. Gallup asked whether or not Americans would not vote for a Black person, referring to Obama, would not vote for a woman, referring to Hillary Clinton, would not vote for a Mormon, referring to Mitt Romney, would not vote for a person as old as John McCain would be, 72 years old. And what Gallup found is 5% of Americans said they would not, under any circumstances, vote for a Black person. 11% said they would not, under any circumstances, vote for a female. 24% said they would not vote for a Mormon. 42% said they would not vote for a person who would be 72 years old when he became president, which would have been the case had John McCain been elected. In other words, Obama as a Black person had a smaller barrier than these three white politicians. So having this conversation right now when racism has never been a less significant problem in America, to me is mind-boggling. Right now, Congress is 12% Black, which is roughly the percentage of Blacks in America. In 1964, Martin Luther King gave an interview to the BBC. And he said he was surprised at the changes that had taken place in America in recent years. And he believed that a Black person could become president in 40 years' time, or maybe even less. That's roughly around the time when Obama became president. And Martin Luther King did not say, we will know when we've arrived at the promised land when there's a Black coach of Notre Dame, which has happened, when there is a Black female who's the president of an Ivy League university, which has happened, when Blacks are mayors of all the major cities in America, which has happened, when Blacks are police chiefs of the major cities in America, when there are superintendents of schools of America or mayors of America, sometimes all three at the same time. He did not say that. He did not say when Black people become millionaires and billionaires, which has happened. He did not say when Black people become CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. He said when a Black person becomes president, that's when we'll know we've reached the point where people are being evaluated based on the content of their character to the extent that it is reasonable to expect. And the idea that slavery built America is belied by the fact that at one time, Virginia was the most populous and wealthiest state in the Union, but within a couple of generations, it had fallen behind states in the North because the South depended upon slavery, which impoverished the South relative to the North, which is primarily why the North won the election. No one could have had, or very few people could have had a life harder than my father. My father was 13 years old, born in 1915. He was kicked out of his house by his mother. Athens, Georgia, Jim Crow, at the beginning of the Great Depression. The man walked down the street, did whatever he could. Ultimately, he became a Pullman porter on the trains, which was the largest private employer of Blacks in those days. Traveled all the world, became a Marine, was one of the first Black Marines, a Montford Court Marine. And my dad always told my brothers and me the following: hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you complain about what other people did to you, go to the nearest mirror and say to yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? My dad always told us this: no matter how hard you work, no matter how good you are, sooner or later bad things will happen to you. How you respond to those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. And my father always said this about the Democrat Party: they want to give you something for nothing. When you're trying to get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. Thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
I'd like to just ask Mr. Elder if he has any comments to say in response to Representative Hank Johnson's question that he had asked earlier. I'd like to continue this conversation about that.
I do. We've been talking about disparate outcomes as if the disparate outcomes by definition mean racism. There was a young attorney named Barack Obama who joined with other attorneys to file a class action lawsuit against Citibank some years ago. And as a result of the class action lawsuit, the Citibank agreed to grant mortgages to 186 people who had applied, turned down, and the applicants argued that they were turned down because they were Black. Well, they got the loans, and virtually nobody was able to keep up with the loans. Many of them went into default, which indicated that the bank was not discriminating against these would-be Black borrowers. Also, studies have found that community Black banks often have a higher turn-down rate for would-be borrowers than the majority banks because they are more thinly capitalized. So just because something has a disparate outcome does not mean that that outcome was the result of racism. We've also talked a lot about the police officers. A few days ago, as I started to say, a man was in the backyard of his own house. After the description of a suspect who was running on foot, police officer chasing, mistook the homeowner for the suspect, shot and killed him. I doubt that very many people know about this, and the reason you don't know about it is because the cop who shot the suspect was white. The suspect was white. This took place in Idaho. Therefore, nobody gave a rip. But I assure you, if this had been a Black suspect and a white cop, we'd know his name. The fact is, there are more unarmed white people killed every year by the police than unarmed Blacks. The media couldn't care less. CNN couldn't care less, giving Black people the false impression that the police are mowing down Black people just because they are Black. It is true that the police are 2.5 times more likely to kill a Black suspect. It is also true that a young Black man is anywhere from 7 to 10 times more likely to be a victim of a homicide, almost always the victim at the hands of another young Black man. That's why the cops are there. The idea that there's systemic racism against Black people is a lie. And when it came to the election, the defenders of Biden were arguing, where is the widespread evidence of voter fraud? A fair question. Where is the widespread, forget about widespread, where is the evidence of police brutality against Black people? If anything, the evidence shows the police were more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a Black suspect than a white suspect. It is a fraud, it is a con that is pushed upon this country. We need to stop it.